Lesson 43, Part 2 is proportions. Go ahead and get your notes ready. Push play when you're ready to begin. So what proportions are, or what a proportional ratio is, and we'll use the example of these boxes to explain it. If I were to say these boxes are in proportional relationship to each other, what I'm trying to say is they're the same, they're like a match. Yes, one is bigger than the other, but the relationship between this side and this side is in proportion to the relationship to this side and this side. So they're similar shapes. They're going to stay similar shapes as long as whatever changes you make to this side, you make to this side as well. And if you remember, we did equivalent fractions a while ago, and proportional ratios are similar to that because whatever you do to this, as long as you do the same thing to this, then the shape is going to stay in proportion. So let me give you an example. I can draw another proportional rectangle and say this is in proportion to this. If I said, let's do the measurements were 2 times 4 here, which is 8, and 3 times 4 is 12. As long as whatever I beat this up with, I beat this up with, then I'm going to get a proportional relationship. So what you can look at is this 2 to 3 ratio is equivalent to this 4 to 6 ratio, that they're the same amount. And you can check it. You can check it a couple of ways. You can say, well, 2 times 2 is how I equal 4. If I do 3 times 2, does that equal 6? Oh, looky there. Yes, it is. How about with this 8 and 12? Well, if I do 6 times 2, that equals 12. If I do 4 times 2, does that equal 8? Yes, it does. We also recently worked on another way to prove that something is proportion or in proportion or not. I kind of retaught it to you because it was a useful skill for something we were working on, and it was when we were dividing the linear equations, single-step equations. And so this is going to come back to you really quickly. Let's go back to this one. A way that you can prove that something is in proportion to something else is you can multiply the crosses with each other, and if they're in proportion, they will equal each other. If they're not in proportion, they will not equal each other. So let's look at this example again. We have a 2 to 3 ratio and a 4 to 6 ratio. 2 to 3, 4 to 6. If I multiply the 3 times the 4, I get 12. If I multiply the 6 times the 2, I get 12. That's the same number. So yes, those two ratios are in proportion to one another. We kind of did that with the equivalent fractions, and we did that with those linear equations. So if you remember this, multiply those crosses to check and see, are they proportional, yes, or are they proportional, no? Then this lesson is going to be very, very easy for you. Let's do what we do. Okay, here's the first we do. Are the following ratios proportional? And we have 1/5 and 4/20. And we just want to know, are they proportional? Well, there's two approaches I could take. I could figure out, what do I multiply 1 by in order to get 4? Oh, that would be 4. What do I multiply 5 by in order to get 20? That would be 4 also. If it's the same number, they're in proportion. But in my opinion, the easier way is to multiply those crosses. 5 times 4 is 20, and 20 times 1 is 20, and 20 is equal to 20, so I can say that 1/5 is proportional to 4/20. So I would just use the equal sign to represent that it's proportional. And yes, these are proportional, meaning they have a matching relationship with each other. Let's look at another we do. How about 2/5 and 5/10? Are these two ratios proportional? Well, I'll just go ahead and multiply those crosses. 5 times 5 is 25, and 10 times 2 is 20. And 20 does not equal 25. And when that happens, that's like your big red flag that says, whoop, 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 this is not in proportion. So if those two numbers, when you multiply those crosses, do not equal, then those two ratios are not in proportion to one another. So I would say no, they are not. And that's how you do that. That's really all there is to this lesson. It's really kind of simple, isn't it? Let's try a you do. So we're looking to see if these two ratios, 5/9, is in proportion with 10/45. So go ahead and try and see if you can figure out whether yes, they are in proportion with each other, or no, they are not in proportion with one another. All right, so you have come up with an answer. Let's see what you got. I am going to multiply these crosses to see if they become equal with one another. 9 times 10 is 90. And 45 times 5, gosh, I don't know in my head what that is. So I'm going to just do a little cheat sheet over here, a little happy face math. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. Wow, that is nowhere near 90. That is not in proportion. They are not in proportion. We'll call it prop. They're not in proportion. Let's look at another one more you do, and then I think we're ready to be done. Go ahead and take a look and see if you can figure out if the ratio 4/5 is in proportion with the ratio 12/15. And push play when you have an answer. All right, I choose to multiply the crosses to see if they're in proportion, and so I'm going to do 5 times 12, which some of you know in your head. I don't know my 12s by heart. But 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, so that's 60. And 15 times 4, again, I don't know. So I'll do it the shortcut way. 5 times 4 is 20, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. Hey, 60 does equal 60, so yes, they are in proportion to one another. I'll just put in prop. They are in prop. So that's really it. I mean, it's pretty basic, I think. If you understand this just fine and you're ready for the closure, get the closure and then get it completed and have it checked off. If you are still not sure, go ahead and rewind this lesson to the portion that you're struggling with and review it again. And if that doesn't help, you can come see me if I'm in the classroom, or if I have a sub still during this lesson, then you can ask the sub, or you can check with the sub if you can ask somebody else to explain it to you, because I'm sure there will be somebody in the room who this clicks with. So you can check around and see if you can get extra assistance.